Yesterday I took my first cubensis journey. What I have to report as a mushroom version was a high-dose trip as my very first experience with psychedelics. As profound and life-altering as it was also way more than I bargained for. Before I go into details, I just want to emphasize to new people that if they are new to the experience, and if they are growing cubensis using Fanaticus tech and harvesting pre-cap shrooms, they should probably consider dosing first at 1 gram or less to gauge their threshold levels. If I had not had the life experience and occult training I had when this happened, I could have emerged out of it a wreck in a very aversive reaction, sworn off shrooms for good. So now the details. I have been growing my own cubensis mushrooms using the Fanaticus tech. So far I have harvested about an ounce, harvesting all shrooms in pre-cap state and dehydrating at about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. I had absolutely no psychedelic experience before this. I am occult trained in meditation, some Buddhism, and Rosicrucian. My girlfriend, also a trained occultist, trips at me. She was sober through the whole thing. I had a very light breakfast and lunch with some juice. This started on a Saturday around 5 p.m. The entire experience took place in our bedroom and our bed. I dressed in loosely fitted, comfortable sweat clothes. I proceeded taking the shrooms by about half an hour of meditation. Meditative vowel sounds, incense was lit. During the entire experience I was wearing eye shades which gave me complete darkness. I also had several hours of ambient music on the stereo, which I intermittently listened to. Reading online, I thought I'd conservatively dose myself at 2.1 grams of dehydrated mushroom. I ground it up in a coffee grinder and washed it down with cranberry juice. I did not take any other substances, including pot, prior to this. Initial energy gathered around 10 minutes after taking the cranberry juice. It was full on in 15 minutes. I was flat on my back by that point and stayed that way for hours. Energy kept growing and passing through my chakras. At some point around a half hour in, I could no longer handle the energy on my own and asked for help from the higher self. At some point around then, a multi-phase being or composite entity started somehow occupying my mind space. I was aware of multiple entities, human, who alternately became me and somehow occupied my body and mind space. I sensed they were helping me. The most recognizable personality started to be an old man, a Hasidic Jew with a Kabbalistic training. Was it a living man, a disincarnate entity, a past life personality, or something else? I have no idea, but I am thankful for his help. He spoke through me occasionally and seemed to enjoy aspects of the experience. At some point I started to be drawn toward what I can only call the terrible face of God. It was eternity, the dark void. Maybe it is what the cultists call the abyss. Every time I went to the abyss, I wondered how I could live through this power. The power is impartial and not comforting at all. It is not the beautiful, peaceful place the New Agers frequently seem to suggest. It is ultimate foundation, and it cares not about human beings. I felt like a bug in its presence. I kept being pulled into the internal void. One part of me was still rational and said that this would only go on for a few hours. I knew if I fought it, it would be worse, and though it seemed it would destroy my ego and be so close to the terrible light, I had no choice. I repeatedly experienced ego death. It seemed impossible that my body could live through this. Repeatedly, however, I came back and was reassured by my girlfriend that my body was still intact on this plane. I had to accept the repeated dissolution of self. When I fell into the internal, the bliss was incredible and the glorious. I experienced feelings of unlimited compassion and joy that cannot be expressed in language. There are many other things I experienced or became that cannot be expressed in words. During the experience, I intermittently laughed and cried. I was sobbing because of the terrible majesty and how small and helpless we are in its presence. It is both terrible and joyful to know it. What was bad was that I had no sense I could bring the experience to a conclusion. I had absolutely no control. Seeing the infinite once could have been manageable, but I was drawn into the fire again and again. I chanted frequently and my girlfriend taped the chants. The chants appeared to be in several languages. She said the chants could be heard everywhere in the house. I was so loud. My sense was that the other entities were in control of my body when much of this occurred. I experienced the chants as geometric forms of many kinds. The sounds reverberated deeply and appeared to stretch to infinity and to gain more power. I had many hand gestures which appeared to channel the energy somehow. When the music was on, I became the music. The music frequently stopped on a single note. I experienced frequent time dilation and sense of the eternal now. At different times, I became the music. I think I finally understand the meaning of logos at some level. My body moved constantly as I dealt with the onslaught of energies. Most of the energy was pouring out of my heart chakra. It felt like a spotlight blazing out of my chest. My girlfriend said I quieted down for about an hour after taking the shrooms. I was breathing quietly, but my perception was that I had moved into some kind of deeper realm, where I was still dealing with the terrible light and the void. Unlimited time seemed to pass when I was there. Besides the human entities who were helping me, I got the sense of some kind of insectoid and alien intelligence who was trying to assume me and communicate through me. This was disturbing, but I got no sense of male violence. I had to accept the transmutation of my body in insect-like form. Space at deeper levels seems very tangled and worm-like, both geometrical and organic. I felt I might be experiencing base levels of consciousness when I sensed this. I began to come back to my body about 3.5 hours after taking the shrooms. I gradually learned again how my body works. The other personalities continued to speak through me and talk to my girlfriend for a time. Space was very distorted at first, after taking off the eye shades, but within a half hour I was able to walk around and eat something. My girlfriend helped me to understand the concepts such as time and structured my activities while I began to remember again how to do normal things. I processed and experienced it taking a lot with my girlfriend, but was pretty shaken up after all of it. I was able to sleep around midnight, though I did not sleep well. I had an intermediate headaches the whole night. My conclusion is, don't dose yourself at 2 grams or more for the first time. Work yourself up from a gram or less. I don't think people without occult or meditative training could handle some kind of high dose like this. I will continue to work with my Cubensis friend, but I could easily have been turned off this path for good by this challenging experience of ego death. I will be lowering the dosage next time to see what 1 gram is like.